Holidays mean feasting. From cheddar biscuits to French toast bakes, Hero Bread has you covered with 0 to 5 grams net carb and high fiber options to ensure your holidays stay delicious and balanced. Like their 3 grams net carb pan au chocolat. Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code FALL25 at checkout. That's FALL25 at hero.co. All figures are per serving of Hero Bread. Contains up to 17 grams of fat per serving. See the product nutrition panels on hero.co for more information.
Hey listeners, this is Peter, and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is proudly brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. In Hollywood's long, strange history of bad ideas, few shine, or rather smolder, quite like the Conqueror. Released in 1956, the movie starred the legendary John Wayne, the embodiment of the American West, as none other than Genghis Khan, the Mongol warlord who carved an empire from China to Europe. The result was, by any measure, a cinematic disaster. Miscast, tone-deaf epic mocked by critics and forgotten by audiences. But the real tragedy here, of this Conqueror movie, didn't actually play out on the screen. It unfolded slowly, silently, and lethally in the years that followed. Because the movie wasn't just a flop, it was, as later generations would call it, a cursed production. One whose cast and crew would be ravaged by cancer, fallout, and fate itself.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
A quick word from our sponsors. This day in history. On December 13, 2003, after 9 months of searching, the U.S. forces captured Saddam Hussein near his hometown. The image of Hussein, disoriented, pulled from a spider hole, became one of the defining moments of the Iraq War. For many, it marked the symbolic end of his regime, even as the conflict continued for years. In 1642, on December 13th, explorer Abel Tasman became the first European known to reach New Zealand, mapping coastlines that would later bear his name, including the Tasman Sea. Story of the day. Today's story of the film The Conqueror begins with Howard Hughes, billionaire aviator, film producer, and one of the most eccentric figures in Hollywood. By the early 1950s, Hughes owned RKO Pictures, a studio struggling to find its next big hit. The epic genre was booming. Lavish Technicolor sagas of heroes and conquerors were the rage. Hughes wanted one of his own, a sweeping historical drama to rival Ben-Hur. Enter screenwriter Oscar Millard, who pitched a film about the rise of Genghis Khan, the ruthless warrior who built an empire out of the steppes of Asia. Hughes loved the idea. There was only one problem. He wanted John Wayne to star in the movie. The Duke, the all-American cowboy, was as far from Mongolian royalty as a man could get. Even he knew it. When the offer came, Wayne reportedly joked, "Who am I supposed to play again? Genghis Khan? You've got to be kidding." But Hughes wasn't kidding at all. He wanted Wayne. He paid him top dollar, surrounded him with respected actors, and then greenlit one of the most bizarre casting choices in all of Hollywood history. Production began in 1954 under the director Dick Powell, who had made his own name as a charming actor before moving behind the camera. The shoot would take place not in Mongolia, but in the Utah desert, near the small town of St. George, close to the Nevada border. It was rugged country, barren canyons, red rock cliffs, and wide open spaces that looked perfect for this film. Hughes believed that the setting captured the raw grandeur of the steppes. What no one realized, or rather what some realized but too late, was that this particular patch of desert lay downwind from the United States government's nuclear test site in Nevada. Between 1951 and 1953, the military had detonated more than 100 atomic bombs there as part of Operation Upshot and other test series. The winds carried radioactive dust across all of Utah, contaminating soil, water, and livestock. To locals, the fallout was a grim secret, whispered about but ignored. To the film crew, it was invisible, tasteless, and obviously quite deadly. Filming began in the summer of 1954. The crew built elaborate sets, yurts, palaces, and battle camps, directly in the path of the fallout zone. John Wayne, Susan Hayward, and nearly 200 cast and crew spent weeks riding horses, charging through the dust, and breathing in air thick with radioactive particles. The desert wind kicked up sandstorms that coated their clothes and food. Some even joke that their fine red dust glowed in the dark, a story that later felt chillingly symbolic. When production wrapped, Hughes ordered truckloads of Utah sand shipped to Hollywood for reshoots, ensuring that even the studio backlot would be contaminated. At the time, no one questioned this. The government insisted that atomic testing posed no significant danger to surrounding communities. But the truth was already written in the soil. The Conqueror premiered in 1956 and bombed spectacularly. Critics called it absurd, racist, and unintentionally comedic, and this is in the 1950s. John Wayne's performance, complete with heavy makeup and a growling accent, became infamous. As one reviewer put it, "If this is Mongolia, then I'm Marco Polo." Howard Hughes was humiliated. He withdrew the film from circulation and later bought up every known copy, storing them in his private vault. But the film's legacy didn't end there. Within years, strange coincidences began to emerge. Members of the cast and crew started falling ill, many with various forms of cancer. The list is actually quite staggering. John Wayne himself died of stomach cancer in 1979. Susan Hayward, his co-star, succumbed to brain cancer in 1975. Pedro Armendariz, the third major player in the movie, was diagnosed with terminal cancer and then took his own life in 1963. Agnes Moorehead, known later for Bewitched, died of lung cancer in 1974. Even director Dick Powell died of cancer in 1963. The cameramen, stunt performers, and technicians weren't spared. Of the 220 people involved in the film's production, by one estimate, 91 later developed some form of cancer, and 46 of them died from it. Statistically, it was far above the national average. Some dismissed this as a coincidence. Others saw it as a curse. In the 1950s, the US government was desperate to maintain public confidence in its atomic testing program. Warnings were minimal, and data about radioactive fallout was heavily classified. Residents of Utah and Nevada were told the tests were safe, even encouraged to watch them and take pictures of mushroom clouds from their porches. But in reality, the region downwind from the Nevada test site, known as Downwinders County, was among the most contaminated areas in North America. Livestock were born deformed, children developed leukemia, and cancer clusters appeared in small rural towns. Hollywood, it turned out, had stumbled straight into America's nuclear backyard. When journalists began connecting the dots between the Conqueror and the fallout zone in the 1970s, the story exploded. The statistics were grim, the imagery tragic. Movie stars who had once charged across the desert now lay dying of invisible wounds. Yet the government never officially acknowledged a link. The Atomic Energy Commission maintained that radiation levels were within acceptable limits, whatever that means. It was, as one historian later wrote, the perfect Cold War irony, a movie about conquest undone by its own empire's weapons. No one took the alleged curse harder than Howard Hughes himself. By the 1960s, Hughes had become a recluse, living in darkened hotel rooms, cut off from the world, haunted by paranoia and obsession. He reportedly watched The Conqueror over and over, hundreds of times, as if trying to understand the catastrophe that he'd unleashed. He spent millions buying up all those remaining prints of film, ensuring that it wouldn't be broadcast or re-released. For nearly 2 decades, the Conqueror vanished from public view, existing only as actually rumor and legend. Those who knew Hughes said that he was consumed by guilt, believing that his decision to film in Utah had doomed dozens of lives. Whether or not he truly felt responsible, the coincidence definitely weighed heavily on him. When Hughes himself died in 1976, The Conqueror was one of the few RKO films found in his private collection. Reels meticulously labeled and preserved, as if he just couldn't let them go. In the decades since, scientists and historians have tried to unravel the truth behind this so-called curse. Was the high cancer rate among the cast and crew mere chance, or proof of radiation poisoning? Those studying downwind regions have found undeniable correlations between fallout exposure and cancer incidence, especially in the areas around St. George, where the movie was filmed. Fallout from tests like Harry, detonated in 1953, was known to have drifted directly over the film's shooting locations. Radioactive isotopes like iodine-131 contaminated soil, milk, and livestock, and lingered for years afterward. Yet proving causation, well, that's tricky. Many of the cast were heavy smokers, drinkers, or lived in LA, a city already plagued by pollution. Still, the numbers are hard to ignore. As one radiation expert put it, when nearly half of the film's crew dies of cancer, you can't just call it coincidence. Today's news for tomorrow's history. Recently, the CDC confirmed the first U.S. cluster of infections that are resistant to all major categories of antibiotics. It was a small outbreak, contained quickly, but enough to issue new emergency guidelines to hospitals nationwide. To most people, it felt like just another health advisory. But historians of the future might treat this as a milestone, the moment modern medicine's safety net finally started to tear. Not to scare you, that's not the point, but the era that scientists have warned about for decades, namely post-antibiotic resistance, when routine infections become dangerous again, is slowly becoming reality. Hey, maybe future textbooks will describe how the 2020s became a decade that forced governments, hospitals, and pharmaceutical companies to rethink the entire model of antibiotic research. Maybe. Thank you so much for tuning in once more. Shoot me an email at peter@historyshortspodcast.com with any comments or questions you may have. Or visit www.historyshortspodcast.com or look for History Shorts Podcast on Facebook, X, and Patreon. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.